Imagine walking through marble halls, where the memory of the world still rests intact, not in fragments, not in ruins, but complete, whole. The accumulated knowledge of centuries gathered in one place, preserved, protected, available to anyone willing to enter and read. This is Alexandria, the city built where Mediterranean meets African shore, where trade routes converge, where cultures meet and blend, where ideas from east and west gather and interact. The city of marble and learning, the city of the great library. You are approaching as the sun sets. The harbor stretches before you, wide, calm. The water is that particular blue-green of the Mediterranean, deep color, clear water. The surface moves gently, small waves, rhythmic, the tide rolling slowly, not urgently, just the patient movement of water, responding to moon and wind. Ships are anchored in the harbor. Merchant vessels, trading ships carrying grain and wine and papyrus and goods from across the known world. The ships rock slightly, their masts sway, the water supports them, holds them. The harbor at rest after a day of activity. The Pharos lighthouse rises at the harbor's edge, tall, stone, white marble reflecting the last sunlight. The lighthouse is a tower, geometric, precise. 3 tiers stacking upward, each tier smaller than the one below. The structure tapers as it rises, culminates in the lantern room at the top. Fire burns in the lantern room. You can see it. Not bright yet. The sun is still setting. Daylight still dominates. But the fire is visible. Orange glow. The fire that guides ships, that marks the harbor, that announces Alexandria to travelers approaching from sea. The lighthouse is magnificent, but you are not walking toward it. You are walking inland, away from the harbor, through the city, toward the mountain, toward the library. The streets are paved, stone, well maintained. The stones are fitted precisely. The surface is even, easy to walk on. The streets are wide, planned. Alexandria is a young city, built with intention, built to accommodate traffic, to allow movement, to function efficiently. Buildings line the streets, stone, marble, plaster painted white or cream. The architecture is Greek, columns, pediments, symmetry, but with Egyptian influence. Hieroglyphs carved into some walls, statues that blend Greek and Egyptian styles. The city's hybrid, cosmopolitan, multiple cultures coexisting in stone. The sun is lower now, golden light, the light that comes before sunset, warm, soft. The light makes the marble glow, makes the white buildings appear gold. The city is beautiful in this light, deliberate beauty, planned beauty, beauty as statement. You pass fountain, water flows, trickles. The sound is soothing, small sound, but present. The water comes from somewhere, through pipes, through infrastructure. Alexandria has water systems, has engineering. The city works, functions, provides for its residents. People are walking, not many. The day is ending. Most have gone home, but some are still moving, walking slowly, purposefully. Scholars probably, recognizable by their clothing, by the scroll some carry, by the contemplative pace. No one hurries, no urgency, just the measured pace of people engaged in thought, in study, in the pursuit of understanding that defines this place. You reach a plaza, open space, paved with marble, white marble. The plaza is vast, empty except for a few figures scattered across it. The plaza serves as approach, as threshold, as the space that separates ordinary city from extraordinary institution, and ahead the Msion rises, the museum, the temple of the muses, the institution that houses the library, the complex of buildings dedicated to study, to scholarship, to the preservation and advancement of knowledge. The Msion is not a single building, it is a complex, multiple structures, connected courtyards, gardens, lecture halls, living quarters for scholars, and at its heart, the library, the collection, the scrolls. Columns mark the entrance. Tall columns, stone, marble, white. The columns are Corinthian, elaborate capitals, carved acanthus leaves. The columns support a pediment, triangular. The pediment shows relief sculptures, figures, muses probably, the 9 goddesses who inspire learning and arts. Columns glow in the setting sun. The light is horizontal now, low angle. The light makes the carved details visible, makes the marble seem translucent, as if lit from within. The entrance is welcoming, open, inviting. You approach the threshold, step between the columns. The space opens, a courtyard. Within the complex now, inside the Msion, the world outside recedes, becomes distant. Here, the concerns are different, are intellectual rather than commercial, are eternal rather than immediate. The courtyard is peaceful. Trees grow here, imported trees, figs perhaps, or olives, trees that provide shade, that create green space within the stone environment. The trees are still. No wind moves them. The leaves hang motionless. A pool reflects the sky. Small pool, central to the courtyard. The water is still, mirror-like. The sky appears in the water, blue, deepening blue as the sun sets. The pool doubles the sky, creates depth, creates the impression of looking down into infinite space. The marble floors are cool. You can feel it through your sandals. The stone absorbed heat all day, is releasing it now, but slowly. The thermal mass of marble is significant. The coolness is pleasant, refreshing after the day's heat. You hear nothing but your own footsteps. The sound echoes slightly. The courtyard walls reflect sound, but softly. The echo is gentle, not harsh. The acoustics are good. The space was designed for voices, for lectures, for discussions that need to be heard clearly. The buildings surrounding the courtyard show doorways, arches, dark openings leading to interior spaces, to the halls, to the rooms, to the library itself. The doorways are quiet. No one emerges. No one enters. The scholars are inside, working, reading, thinking. The sun touches the horizon. The light shifts, becomes redder, deeper. The marble takes on warm tone, pink, rose, the color of evening, the color that announces the transition from day to night. You stand in the courtyard, present at the threshold, ready to enter, ready to move from exterior to interior, from the world to the library, from the ordinary to the extraordinary, from the temporary to the eternal. The Msion waits, patient, ready, holding within its walls the accumulated knowledge of the ancient world, holding scrolls, holding texts, holding the attempts of countless minds to understand, to explain, to preserve. And you are here, at this moment, before what comes later, before the changes, before the silence, here, now, when the library is whole, when the collection's intact, when the memory of the world rests in marble halls, waiting to be discovered, waiting to be read. You pass through an archway, enter a corridor. The corridor is long, very long. The end is barely visible, distant. The corridor is defined by columns, colonnade, columns on both sides. Regular spacing. The columns create rhythm, visual rhythm, architectural rhythm. The columns are marble, white, pale. The stone is smooth, polished. You can see the grain, the natural patterns in the stone. Each column is slightly different, unique variations in the marble, but uniform in shape, in proportion, in purpose. The floor is marble too, different marble. Darker, gray or cream. The floor is smooth, worn by countless feet. Thousands of scholars have walked this corridor. The path is polished by use, by centuries of walking. The corridor is open on one side. The columns do not support a wall, support only a roof. The open side faces a garden. You can see trees, vegetation, green space within the complex. The garden is peaceful, still. No one walks there now. Light filters through the colonnade. The setting sun creates patterns. Columns cast shadows. The shadows fall across the floor, parallel lines. Dark and light alternating. The pattern extends down the corridor, repeating, hypnotic. The ceiling above is wood, cedar. You can smell it, faint but present. Cedar was imported, expensive, prestigious. The wood is carved, patterns, geometric designs. The ceiling is not flat, is coffered. Recessed panels creating depth, creating visual interest. The corridor is cool, noticeably cooler than the courtyard. The shade helps. The marble helps. Stone does not conduct heat quickly. The interior spaces maintain more constant temperature, protection from extremes, climate control through architecture. Your footsteps echo, not loudly, but audibly. The sound travels down the corridor, reflects, returns. Each step creates multiple echoes. The echoes overlap, create a soft ambient sound, the sound of presence in empty space. But the space is not truly empty. You see doorways, openings in the wall on the closed side of the corridor. The doorways lead to rooms. The rooms are the library, the collection, the scrolls. You approach one doorway, look inside. The room is large, high ceiling. The walls are lined with shelves, wooden shelves, cedar wood probably, the same expensive imported wood as the ceiling. The shelves extend from floor to ceiling, rising higher than you can reach. The shelves hold scrolls, papyrus scrolls, cylindrical forms, rolled. The scrolls are stacked horizontally, row upon row. The scrolls fill the shelves, completely fill them. The density is remarkable. The number of scrolls is overwhelming. Each scroll is a text, a work, poetry, history, philosophy, science, mathematics, medicine, geography, astronomy, drama. The accumulated knowledge of Greek civilization, Egyptian civilization, Persian, Phoenician, Jewish, Indian, Chinese, knowledge from across the known world, gathered here. Some scrolls have tags, small labels, wooden tags attached with string. The tags show titles, authors, brief descriptions. The library is organized, cataloged, searchable, not random, not chaotic, intentional order. The room has tables, wood, simple but well made. The tables are clear, no scrolls left open, no materials scattered. The scholars have finished for the day, have returned scrolls to shelves, have cleaned their workspace. The discipline of scholarship visible in the orderliness. A reading stand rests against one wall, wooden frame, adjustable height for holding scrolls open while reading. The stand is empty now, waiting for tomorrow, waiting for the next scholar to need it. The light in the room is dim, just the last daylight filtering through the doorway, through a high window. Small window. Windows here are small, to protect scrolls from sun, from rain, from the elements that damage papyrus. The protection of the collection is paramount. You continue down the corridor, past more doorways, more rooms, each one similar, each one filled with shelves, with scrolls. The scale is vast. The collection extends through multiple rooms, multiple corridors. The entirety of the complex. You think about the scrolls, about their journey here. Some were bought, purchased from other libraries, from private collections. Some were copied. Scribes hired to duplicate texts, to create new versions, to expand the collection. Some were borrowed. Ships arriving in Alexandria's harbor were searched. If books were found, they were taken to the library, copied. The copies were returned to the owners. The originals were kept, added to the collection. This is how Alexandria grew its library. Through aggressive acquisition, through the belief that all knowledge should be gathered in one place. The corridor turns, angles slightly, leads to another corridor. The colonnade continues. The rhythm of columns continues. The marble continues. The quiet continues. You notice the silence, how complete it is. No voices, no sounds of activity, just your footsteps. Just the soft ambient sound of air moving through the space. The silence is not empty, is full of potential, full of the knowledge that surrounds you, that waits on the shelves. That requires only that someone enter and read. Another garden appears through the colonnade. Different garden. This one has a fountain. You hear water, trickling, gentle. The fountain provides ambient sound, soft sound, the kind of sound that aids concentration rather than breaking it. Stone benches surround the fountain, for sitting, for contemplation, for taking breaks from intense study. The benches are empty now, will be occupied tomorrow, will serve their purpose when scholars need rest, need to think, need to integrate what they have read. The building inspires contemplation. That is what you feel. The architecture is not just functional, is not just shelter. The architecture participates in the work, supports thought, encourages reflection. The proportions, the light, the materials, all chosen to create an environment where thinking is easier, where concentration is natural, where the mind can engage deeply with complex ideas. The marble is not just beautiful, is cool, is durable, reflects light softly, does not absorb sound harshly. The marble creates acoustic and thermal environments that are conducive to study. The high ceilings create space, prevent the feeling of confinement, allow air to circulate, allow sound to disperse. The high ceilings make the rooms feel grander, make the activity within feel more important. The gardens provide visual rest, provide green, provide the natural element that balances the built environment. The gardens remind that knowledge is about the world, about nature, about life. The gardens are integrated into the architecture deliberately. You reach another courtyard, smaller than the entrance courtyard, more intimate. This courtyard is paved with colored marble. Not just white, geometric patterns, circles and squares, different colored stones creating design. The floor is art, is beauty integrated into function. The courtyard is quiet, deeply quiet. The surrounding buildings block sound from the city, from the harbor. The courtyard exists in its own acoustic environment, separated, protected. The quiet is not absence of sound. is presence of peace. A sundial stands in the courtyard center. Bronze, green patina. The sundial is scientific instrument and decorative object simultaneously. The shadow falls across markings, shows the time, but no one is here to read it. The sundial marks time for its own sake, continues its function, whether observed or not. You think about the scholars who work here, who spend their days reading, copying, thinking, writing. The scholars are supported by the Ptolemaic dynasty, are given rooms, are given meals, are given salaries, are freed from the need to work for basic survival so they can dedicate themselves to knowledge. This is what Alexandria offers, what the Motion provides, the opportunity for pure study, for research without immediate practical application, for the pursuit of understanding for its own sake. This is revolutionary. This is rare. This is why the greatest minds are drawn here. The colonnade continues beyond the courtyard. More corridors, more rooms, more scrolls. The library extends farther than you have walked, farther than you can walk in one evening. The collection is vast, is the largest in the world, is the attempt to gather everything written, everything known, everything humanity has learned and recorded, and it rests here. In these marble halls, protected, preserved, available, waiting for readers, waiting for the scholars who will arrive tomorrow and enter these rooms and take scrolls from shelves and unfold centuries of thought and add their own understanding to the ongoing conversation of human knowledge. The stone floors cool beneath you, the columns stand patient, the scrolls rest on their shelves, and the quiet holds everything, gentle, supportive, the quiet of a place dedicated to the mind, to the spirit, to the eternal human desire to know and to preserve knowing for those who come after. You enter one of the main reading rooms, larger than the storage rooms, higher ceiling, more windows. Though the windows are still small, still protective, but more of them, providing more light during the day. The room is empty of people, but full of presence. The room holds something you can sense, something in the air, the scent. It is distinctive, unmistakable. The smell of papyrus, aged papyrus, old plant material, organic, slightly sweet, slightly musty, not unpleasant, just present. The accumulated smell of thousands of scrolls stored in enclosed space for decades or centuries, and beneath the papyrus smell, cedar, the wood of the shelves. The oil in cedar that resists insects, that preserves, that protects. Cedar was chosen deliberately for this property. The scent is faint, subtle, but constant. The shelves release the scent slowly, continuously, have been releasing it for years. The combination creates an atmosphere, an olfactory environment unique to libraries, to places where papyrus and wood coexist in large quantities. The smell of knowledge, the smell of preservation, the smell of human effort to record and maintain. You approach the nearest shelf, run your hand along the scrolls, feel the texture. Papyrus is not smooth like modern paper, is textured, is made of plant fibers. The fibers are visible. You can feel the weave, the pattern where horizontal and vertical fibers cross. The scrolls are various ages. Some are recent, relatively recent, copied within living memory. These scrolls are lighter in color. The papyrus is still cream or light tan. The ink is dark, clear, recent. Other scrolls are older, much older. The papyrus has darkened, has turned brown, has become brittle. The edges show wear, small tears, places where the fibers have separated. These scrolls must be handled carefully, are fragile, are deteriorating despite the best preservation efforts. The ink on the old scrolls has faded, not completely, but noticeably. What was black is now brown, gray-brown, still readable, but requiring more light, more attention. The ink is carbon-based, soot mixed with gum. The combination is relatively stable. But time affects everything. Some scrolls show repairs, patches, new papyrus added where old papyrus has torn or crumbled. The repairs are careful, precise, the work of skilled scribes. The repairs preserve the text, allow the scroll to continue being used, to continue providing access to the knowledge it contains. You pull a scroll from a shelf, carefully. The scroll is rolled tightly, cylindrical. The ends are protected by wooden rods. The rods serve as handles, as structural support, as protection for the papyrus edges. You unroll the scroll slightly, just enough to see the text. The writing is Greek, clear script, careful letters, the hand of someone trained in writing, of a professional scribe. The lines are straight, even spacing. Margins are precise. The text is well organized, easy to read. The subject is geometry. Mathematical diagrams are visible. Circles, triangles, lines with labels. Proofs demonstrated through visual arrangement and accompanying text. This is Euclid, or someone working in his tradition, the systematic study of spatial relationships, of mathematical truth. You roll the scroll closed, return it to its place. The shelf holds dozens of mathematical texts, scrolls on arithmetic, on algebra, on astronomy, where mathematics is applied to celestial movements, on optics, where geometry explains light and vision. Mathematics is fundamental to many disciplines. Adjacent shelves hold philosophy. You recognize names on tags: Plato, Aristotle, the Stoics, the Epicureans, the great thinkers whose ideas shaped how people understand existence, consciousness, ethics, the good life, the nature of reality. These are not originals, cannot be originals. The authors lived centuries ago, but these are copies. Some are copies of copies of copies, the chain of transmission. Each generation of scribes making new versions, introducing small errors, small changes, but preserving the essential content, keeping the ideas alive. The air itself holds knowledge. That is how it feels, as if the ideas contained in the scrolls have somehow permeated the atmosphere. As if by breathing this air you are taking in fragments of understanding, as if the room itself has become saturated with thought, with the accumulated mental effort of centuries. You move to another section, medicine. Scrolls on anatomy, on the humors, on the circulation of blood, on treatments for diseases, on surgical procedures, the practical knowledge of healing. Of understanding the human body, of maintaining health and treating illness. Diagrams show the body, internal organs, the heart, the liver, the brain. The drawings are precise, based on observation. On dissection, on the careful study of physical form, the drawings serve to instruct, to allow knowledge to be transmitted visually as well as textually. Herbal remedies are listed, plants with medicinal properties, instructions for preparation, for dosage, for application. The knowledge is empirical, based on trial and observation, on the accumulated experience of healers across cultures and centuries. Geography occupies another section, maps. Though maps on scrolls are small, simplified, but present, showing coastlines, mountains, rivers, cities, the known world as understood in Alexandria, the Mediterranean, the Near East, North Africa, parts of Asia. The edges become vague. Unknown regions marked as speculation or myth. Texts describe distant lands, India, China, Britannia, places few Alexandrians have visited, but knowledge of them exists, brought by travelers, immersive, by soldiers. The descriptions are mixed, some accurate, some exaggerated, some completely mythical, but all recorded, all preserved. History fills many shelves, chronicles of wars, of kings, of dynasties, of rises and falls of civilizations. The attempt to record what happened, to preserve memory, to learn from the past, to understand how the present came to be. The histories are not objective, are written from perspectives, from biases, but they represent attempts at truth, at accuracy, at creating records that future generations can consult and learn from. Poetry and drama occupy substantial space. Homer, Hesiod, Sappho, the playwrights, Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, Aristophanes, the literary works, the texts meant to move, to inspire, to entertain, to express the human experience in beautiful language. These scrolls are worn, more worn than scientific texts, because they are read more often, are read for pleasure as well as study, are copied more frequently. The popular works show their popularity through physical evidence, through the wear they have accumulated. You notice the shelves rising upward, higher than you can reach, higher than two people standing could reach. Ladders ulceased, wooden ladders stored against walls, for accessing the upper shelves, for retrieving scrolls that are stored high. The system is logical. More frequently used texts are stored at accessible heights. Less frequently accessed texts are stored high. The organization reflects usage patterns, reflects the practical reality of scholarship. Tables fill the center of the room. Long tables, multiple tables arranged in rows. The tables are empty now, clear, waiting for tomorrow, waiting for scholars to arrive and place scrolls on them, and lean over texts and read and think and make notes. Some tables have reading stands, permanent stands built into the tables, for holding scrolls open at comfortable angles, for reducing strain, for making long reading sessions more sustainable. The furniture is designed for the work, for the specific physical requirements of studying scrolls. Ink stains mark some tables, small stains, dark spots where ink has dripped, where pens have been cleaned. The stains are evidence of work, of writing, of the creation of notes, of the copying of texts. The stains are permanent, part of the tables now, historical markers of scholarly labor. The room holds the accumulated work of humanity. Not all of it, not everything ever written, but a substantial portion. The greatest attempt ever made to gather knowledge in one place, to make it accessible, to preserve it for future generations, to create a repository of human understanding. And the room rests, the scrolls rest, the knowledge waits, patient, ready, requiring only that someone enter and reach for a scroll and unroll it and read, requiring only the human desire to know, to learn, to participate in the ongoing conversation of ideas that spans centuries and cultures and connects all who seek understanding. The scent persists, papyrus and cedar, ink and age. The smell of preservation, the smell of the attempt to make knowledge permanent, to resist forgetting, to build memory in physical form. You move to another wing of the complex, the scriptorium, the room where copying happens, where texts are duplicated, where the collection grows not through acquisition, but through multiplication. The room is larger than the reading rooms, needs to be. Multiple people work here during the day, need space, need distance from each other, need room for materials, for scrolls in various stages of completion. The tables here are different, purpose-built for copying. Each table has an angled surface, a slant that makes writing easier, that reduces strain on the back and neck, that allows the scribe to see clearly while working. The angle is precise, calculated, based on generations of experience. The tables are empty of people. The day's work has ended, but evidence of work remains. Scrolls rest on tables, some partially unrolled, some weighted at the edges to keep them flat, some showing fresh text, ink still drying. You approach one table. Look at the scroll resting there. The papyrus is new, fresh, lake-colored. Surface is smooth, prepared for writing. The scroll is partially filled with text, careful script, regular, even, the work of a trained hand. The text is being copied from another scroll. The source scroll rests beside it, older scroll, darker papyrus. The scribe is creating a new version, is duplicating an existing work, is adding to the library's collection, is ensuring that if one scroll is damaged or lost, another exists. The copying is exact, meticulous, each letter formed precisely, each word spelled correctly. The scribe checks constantly, compares the new text to the source, verifies accuracy. The work requires intense concentration, sustained attention. One lapse creates an error that might persist through future copies. Reed pens rest on the tables. Multiple pens. Each scribe has several. The pens are made from river reeds, hollow stems cut at an angle. The tip splits slightly to hold ink. Pen is dipped in ink repeatedly while writing. Must be cleaned and trimmed regularly to maintain proper function. Inkwells sit near each writing surface, small ceramic vessels, cylindrical or bowl-shaped. The ink is black, carbon black, soot collected and mixed with gum arabic, water added to create the right consistency, not too thick, not too thin. The ink must flow from the pen, but not spread uncontrollably on the papyrus. Some tables show red ink alongside black. Red ink is used for titles, for emphasis, for section headings. The red is ochre-based, mineral pigment, more expensive than carbon black, used sparingly, but effectively. The red creates visual organization, makes texts easier to navigate. Knives rest on tables too. Small, sharp knives, for trimming pens, for scraping away errors. Papyrus can be scraped, the surface layer removed, allowing correction, allowing the scribe to fix mistakes without discarding entire sections. The knife is an essential tool, used constantly. Sponges sit in water bowls, for cleaning pens, for moistening papyrus when needed, for wiping tables. The sponges are natural, sea sponges from the Mediterranean, soft, absorbent, practical. You notice the lighting. Oil lamps are positioned near each workspace, bronze lamps, multiple lamps per table. The copying requires good light, requires being able to see clearly. Mistakes happen in poor light. The lamps are not burning now, are cold. will be lighted tomorrow when work resumes. The windows here are larger than in storage rooms. The scriptorium needs more light, needs the sun, but the windows face north, deliberate orientation. North light is consistent, does not create harsh shadows, does not change dramatically through the day. North light is ideal for detailed work. The room is silent now, but you imagine the sound during working hours. The scratch of reed on papyrus, continuous, overlapping, multiple scribes working simultaneously. The sound is rhythmic, meditative. The sound of knowledge being preserved, being duplicated, being secured against loss. The scratch would be soft, not loud, not jarring, just present, constant. The sound fills the room, but does not overwhelm. The scribes work in companionable silence, each focused on their own text, their own accuracy, their own contribution to the collection. Occasionally a scribe might speak, might ask a question, might verify a reading, but mostly silence. The work requires concentration, requires the mind to be fully present, to track each letter, each word, each line, to maintain accuracy across hours of continuous work. Fresh scrolls rest on a separate table, waiting to be used. The papyrus has been prepared, cut to size, the edges trimmed, the surface smooth. The material is ready, requires only ink and skilled hand to become a vehicle for knowledge. Scrolls that have been completed rest on shelves along the wall, finished copies, ready to be added to the collection. Some will be catalogued and shelved in the library proper. Some will be sent elsewhere, to other libraries, to patrons who commission specific copies, to cities requesting texts. Alexandria, copies for others, is not just acquiring, is also distributing, is spreading knowledge beyond its own walls. The Mausian understands that knowledge should flow, should reach those who desire it. The copying serves the larger goal of making knowledge accessible. You notice the care evident in everything, the quality of materials, the precision of the work, the organization of the space. Nothing is haphazard, nothing is careless. Every element serves the purpose. Every detail supports the goal of accurate, durable replication. The tables are clean, wiped down at the end of each day. No ink spills left to harden, no debris scattered. The discipline of the work extends to maintaining the workspace, to respecting the materials, creating conditions where good work is possible. Drying racks stand against one wall, wooden frames with horizontal bars for hanging scrolls to dry after completion. The ink must dry completely before the scroll is rolled, before the scroll is handled. Premature rolling would smear the ink, would ruin the work. The scrolls hang like fabric, suspended, drying slowly in the air. The rhythm of the work is patient, cannot be rushed. Each scroll takes days to copy. Long scrolls take weeks. The scribes are not racing, are not competing, are simply working steadily, sustainably, at the pace that allows accuracy, that prevents errors, that ensures quality. Some scribes specialize. One might focus on mathematical texts, understanding the diagrams, the notation. Another might specialize in poetry, understanding meter and line breaks. Another in medical texts, understanding anatomical terminology. Specialization ensures expertise, ensures that subtle aspects of texts are preserved correctly. Young scribes learn from experienced scribes, work alongside them, observe, practice. The skill is transmitted directly, teacher to student, generation to generation. The tradition of copying is old, is essential, is how knowledge has always been preserved in written form. The scriptorium is the heart of preservation, is where the library actively protects knowledge against time, against decay, against loss. Each completed scroll is insurance, is redundancy, is the practical application of the principle that important things should exist in multiple copies. The room waits, the tables wait, the materials wait. Tomorrow the scribes will return. Will light the lamps, will take up their pens, will dip into ink, will place reed tip to papyrus, will begin again the slow, careful work of copying, of preserving, of ensuring that what has been written will continue to exist, will continue to be readable, will continue to be available for those who seek it. The silent scribes, working without fanfare, without glory, but with skill, with dedication, with the understanding that their work matters, that each accurate copy is a small victory against forgetting, against the constant threat of loss that hangs over all written knowledge. The room holds their absence, but also their presence, the work they have done, the work they will do, the ongoing labor of preservation that makes the library possible, that makes the collection viable, that ensures Alexandria's knowledge does not remain singular, but multiplies, spreads, endures. You find yourself in a smaller room, more intimate. The walls are lined with shelves, but these shelves hold something different, not scrolls of literary or scientific texts, catalogs, lists, the organizational infrastructure of the library, the pinacase, the tablets, the great catalog created by Callimachus, the attempt to list and describe every work in the collection, the attempt to impose order on the vast accumulation of knowledge. The catalogs themselves are on scrolls, long scrolls, very long, lists of titles, authors, first lines, brief descriptions, subject classifications. The metadata that makes the collection searchable, that transforms a warehouse of scrolls into a functioning library. Without the pinakes, the collection would be overwhelming, impossible to navigate. You could not find specific texts, could not locate authors, could not browse by subject. The catalogs are what make knowledge accessible rather than merely present. You unroll one of the catalog scrolls. The text is dense, organized in columns. Each entry contains standardized information: title, author's name, author's father's name, author's birthplace, first line of the work, number of lines or length, subject classification. The classifications are broad but useful. Poetry divided into epic, lyric, tragic, comic. Prose divided into history, oratory, philosophy, medicine, mathematics, and other categories. The classifications reflect how knowledge is understood, how it is organized in the scholarly mind. The entries are alphabetical within categories, or sometimes arranged by chronology. Different catalogs use different organizing principles, but all share the goal of making specific works findable, of creating pathways through the collection. Wooden tags hang from shelves throughout the library, small labels. Each tag corresponds to an entry in the planix. The tags show abbreviated information, title and author primarily. The tags allow someone browsing shelves to identify texts, to see what is present without unrolling every scroll. The tagging system is simple but effective, a tag attached with string. The string looped around the scroll, the tag hanging visible. When scrolls are returned to shelves, the tags ensure they are placed correctly, ensure the organization is maintained. You think about the work involved in creating the pinakes. Callimachus and his team examined every scroll in the collection, read enough to identify it, to verify authorship, to describe content. The work took years, decades perhaps, required sustained institutional support, but the result is invaluable, is what separates Alexandria's library from a mere accumulation of texts. The Pinnaces create intellectual access, create the ability to find specific knowledge, to compare related works, to trace the development of ideas across time and authors. The catalog shows the scope of the collection, hundreds of thousands of scrolls, maybe more. The exact number is uncertain, but vast, far more than any individual could read in a lifetime, more than any small group could read. The collection represents the accumulated written output of centuries of Mediterranean and Near Eastern civilization. Some entries note multiple copies, the same work existing in different versions. The catalog tracks this, notes discrepancies, acknowledges that texts exist in variants, that copying introduces changes, that determining authoritative versions is complex work requiring comparison and judgment. The catalog includes lost works, texts that once existed in the collection but no longer do. The entries remain, as record, as memorial. The Pinnaces preserves knowledge of what was known even when the primary sources are gone, preserves at least the titles, the authors, the fact that such works existed. Other catalogs rest on nearby shelves, specialized catalogs, lists of works by single authors, lists of works on specific subjects. This is organized geographically by place of origin, multiple pathways into the collection, multiple organizing principles allowing different kinds of searches. Cross-references exist. One catalog points to another. See also notations. The catalogers understood that knowledge is interconnected, that works relate to each other in complex ways, that organizing by one principle does not exhaust the relationships that exist. The room contains maps too, not geographic maps, conceptual maps, diagrams showing relationships between disciplines, showing how philosophy connects to mathematics, how medicine connects to natural philosophy, how poetry relates to history, the attempt to visualize the structure of knowledge itself. These diagrams are speculative, are theoretical, reflect particular philosophical commitments about how reality is organized. Different scholars might draw different maps, but the attempt is important, is the recognition that knowledge is not just accumulated facts, but structured understanding. Tables in the room hold works in progress. New catalog entries being prepared, updates being made. The Pinnaces is living document, changes as the collection changes, as new works are acquired, as old works are identified more precisely, as scholarship advances understanding of authorship and dating. The work of cataloging never ends, is ongoing maintenance, requires continuous attention, requires people dedicated to organizational work rather than primary research. The catalogers are scholars in their own right, must understand the materials deeply, must make informed judgments about classification and description. You think about what the Pinnaces represents philosophically, the belief that knowledge can be organized, that human understanding has structure, that the diversity of texts can be grouped meaningfully, that finding principles exist that transcend the particularity of individual works. This is humanity attempting to organize infinity, attempting to impose human categories on the boundless variety of thought and expression. The attempt is partially successful. The categories help. The organization functions, but the system also shows its limits. Some works do not fit neatly. Some span multiple categories. Some resist classification, but the attempt matters. The effort matters. The pinnaces is the intellectual infrastructure that makes the library function as library rather than warehouse, is the tool that converts quantity into quality, that makes vastness navigable. Scholars consulting the catalogs can plan their research, can identify relevant works, can request specific scrolls, can build comprehensive understanding of what has been written on their topics of interest. The catalogs enable systematic study, enable thoroughness, enable scholarly work that builds on existing knowledge rather than reinventing it. The room is quiet, the catalogs rest. The organizational knowledge waits. Tomorrow scholars will consult them. Will search for authors, will locate texts, will find their way through the vastness of the collection to the specific knowledge they seek, and the library will function, will provide access, will fulfill its purpose of making knowledge available, not just present, not just preserved, but accessible, findable, usable. The Pinnace makes this possible, makes the library more than the sum of its scrolls, makes it a functioning system for the organization and retrieval of human knowledge. The catalogs remain, patient, ready, the ordering of the world in text, the map of knowledge, the guide through centuries of writing, the tool that transforms collection into library, that transforms preservation into access, that transforms accumulation into resource. You climb stairs, stone steps, narrow, winding upward. The staircase is in a tower, one of the taller structures in the Motion complex. The stairs are worn. Countless feet have climbed here. Scholars, astronomers, those who study the heavens. The stairs spiral. You climb slowly. The ascent is gradual but continuous. Higher. Above the reading rooms, above the storage halls, above the treetops of the gardens, into the upper air, you emerge onto a roof, flat roof. The platform is open to the sky. No ceiling, no obstruction, just the dome of heaven visible in all directions. The roof is the observatory, the place where celestial observations happen, where the sky is studied, measured, understood. The sun has set completely. The sky is dark, deep blue-black. Stars are appearing, not all at once, but progressively. The brightest first, then fainter ones, then fainter still. The sky fills with light, countless points, the familiar patterns becoming visible. Instruments rest on the roof, bronze devices, carefully crafted. An armillary sphere stands on a pedestal. Rings of bronze representing celestial circles, the equator, the ecliptic, the tropics, the meridian. The rings can rotate, can be adjusted, can model the apparent motion of stars and sun. The armillary sphere is beautiful, functional beauty. The curves of the rings, the precision of the construction, the way it reduces celestial complexity to graspable mechanical form. The sphere is tool and object of contemplation simultaneously. A gnomon rises from the roof surface, vertical post, simple but precisely positioned. The gnomon casts shadow during the day. The shadow's length and direction change with the sun's position, change with seasons. The gnomon measures, provides data, enables calculations of Earth's size and the sun's distance. You think about Eratosthenes, the librarian who measured Earth's circumference, using shadows, using gnomons in Alexandria, and Sion, using geometry and careful observation. The measurement was remarkably accurate, within a few percent of the true value, using only shadows and reasoning. Stone markers are set into the roof floor, carved lines, angles, reference points for measurements, for aligning instruments, for recording observations consistently. The markers are permanent. Allow measurements to be compared across years, across generations. A quadrant leans against the parapet. Bronze arc, mark with degree divisions, for measuring angles, for determining the altitude of stars above the horizon, for tracking planetary positions. The quadrant is graduated finely, allows precise readings. Tables rest under a small shelter at the roof's edge, protected from dew, from rain when it comes. The tables hold scrolls, star catalogs, lists of stars with their positions, lists of planetary observations, the accumulated data of years of watching the sky. The night sky above Alexandria is clear. The Mediterranean climate provides many clear nights, few clouds, good visibility, ideal conditions for astronomy. The astronomers take advantage, observe regularly, record systematically, build knowledge night by night. You look up, the stars are fully visible now. The constellations are recognizable, the patterns named and studied for centuries. The zodiacal constellations along the ecliptic, the circumpolar stars that never set, the seasonal constellations that rise and set with the turning year. The Milky Way stretches overhead. Dense band of light, countless faint stars, the river of light across the sky. The Greeks call it the milk of Hera. Others have other names, but all cultures notice it, marvel at it, wonder about it. Planets are visible, not all, but some. Venus perhaps, Jupiter, Mars, the wandering stars, the ones that move against the fixed background of constellations, the ones that require special attention, special tracking, the ones whose movements reveal something about the cosmos. The astronomers here have calculated, have measured, have determined that planets orbit, that they follow paths, that those paths can be predicted. The mathematics is complex, requires geometric models, requires epicycles and difference, but it works. Allows prediction of planetary positions months or years in advance. The moon is visible, waxing crescent, thin arc of light. The moon's phases are understood, are caused by the moon's position relative to the sun. The cycle is predictable, 29.5 days, the basis for lunar calendars, for tracking time. Lunar eclipses are understood too, are caused by Earth's shadow. When moon passes through shadow, the eclipse happens. The understanding is geometric, is based on the recognition that moon, Earth, and Sunday are spherical bodies whose relative positions create the phenomena we observe. The astronomers have measured the moon's distance using parallax, using observations from different locations. The measurements are approximate but reasonable, give sense of scale, of the vast spaces between celestial bodies. The observatory is quiet. No astronomers are present, but their instruments remain, their tables remain, their accumulated observations remain in the catalogs. The work continues across generations. Each astronomer building on previous work, adding observations, refining measurements, improving understanding. You think about what happens here, the patient watching, night after night, season after season, year after year, the recording, the calculation, the attempt to understand the cosmos through observation and reason, the belief that the universe follows laws, that those laws can be discovered, that human minds can comprehend cosmic structure. This is natural philosophy, is science, is the systematic study of nature. The observatory is where theory meets observation, where mathematical models are tested against reality, where predictions are verified or falsified, where knowledge grows through disciplined inquiry. The work is not urgent, is not practical in immediate sense, does not produce wealth or power directly. but the astronomers are supported, are given resources, are allowed to pursue understanding for its own sake. This is what the Malthusian enables: pure research. Study motivated by curiosity rather than immediate application, but practical benefits emerge. The understanding of celestial mechanics enables better calendars, enables navigation, enables timekeeping. The practical and theoretical are not separate. Knowledge pursued for understanding often finds application, but the application is not the primary goal. Understanding is the goal. The Mediterranean is visible from the roof. Dark expanse, the harbor, the Pharaoh's lighthouse beacon burning, ships at anchor, the sea that connects Alexandria to the wider world, to other cities, other cultures, other sources of knowledge. The sea also brings weather, brings clouds that obscure stars, brings rain occasionally, brings the conditions that interrupt observation. But mostly the sea brings clear skies, brings the stability that makes Alexandria ideal for astronomy. As Edford to the south affects the climate, dry air, stable conditions. The proximity of sea and desert creates the climate that astronomers need: clear nights, minimal disturbance. Conditions that allow careful measurement, that allow the accumulation of reliable data. You remain on the roof, under the stars, in the place where human curiosity meets cosmic mystery, where careful observation transforms wonder into knowledge, where the apparent chaos of celestial motion reveals underlying order, where mathematics and geometry unlock the structure of the heavens. The stars continue their slow rotation. The sky turns. The celestial sphere revolves. The patterns shift. The familiar configurations move across the dome. The rhythm is ancient, eternal. The same sky that the ancient peoples watched. The same patterns that future peoples will watch. The connection across time created by the unchanging stars. The observatory waits. The instruments wait. The data tables wait. Tomorrow, perhaps, an astronomer will climb these stairs, will bring fresh papyrus, will record new observations, will add to the growing understanding, will participate in the ongoing human project of comprehending the cosmos. For now, you stand alone, under infinite space, under the stars that Alexandria's scholars study and measure and catalog, under the sky that humans have always watched, always wondered about, always tried to understand. The observatory holds that understanding, preserves it, advances it, continues the ancient work of learning to read the heavens. You descend from the observatory, return to interior spaces, find another wing of the complex, the medical section, where texts on healing are stored, where the study of the human body happens, where physicians learn and teach. The room is similar to other storage rooms: shelves, scrolls, tables, but the subject matter is distinct. The focus is singular: the human body, health, disease, treatment, the practical knowledge of maintaining life, of reducing suffering, of understanding the physical form we inhabit. Scrolls here are organized by topic: anatomy, physiology, pathology, surgery, pharmacology, the subdivisions of medical knowledge. Each discipline represented by multiple texts, multiple authors, multiple perspectives on the same essential subject. You approach a table. A scroll is spread open, weighted at the edges. The scroll shows diagrams, drawings, the human body rendered in ink, simplified, stylized, but recognizable, clear. The drawing shows the circulatory system, or the understanding of it that exists here: vessels, arteries, veins, the heart at the center, lines radiating outward, carrying blood, carrying pneuma, carrying life force through the body. The understanding is not complete, is not modern, but is substantial, is based on observation, on dissection, on the careful study of cadavers, of animal bodies, of wounds, of what becomes visible when the body opens. Dissection happens here, not commonly, not routinely. Human dissection is controversial, is permitted in Alexandria but restricted elsewhere. But animal dissection is regular. Pigs, dogs, monkeys, animals whose anatomy resembles human anatomy enough to provide insight. The physicians learn, observe, record, create diagrams that teach others, that preserve theresippor anatomical knowledge, that allow medical understanding to accumulate, to improve, to become more accurate with each generation. Another diagram shows the brain, the skull opened, the organ visible inside. The Greeks understand the brain is important, is connected to sensation, to thought, to consciousness. But the mechanisms are unclear, remain mysterious, subject of speculation and debate. Different schools of thought exist. Some believe the heart is the seat of intelligence. Others believe the brain. The texts represent both views, both arguments. The library preserves multiple perspectives, allows readers to encounter different ideas, to make their own judgments. You notice text beside the diagrams, descriptions, explanations, the written words supporting the visual information. The text describes what the diagram shows, names parts, explains functions, provides the context that makes the diagram comprehensible. Medical texts here are practical, are meant to instruct, to train physicians, to provide reference during treatment. The texts describe diseases, list symptoms, suggest diagnoses, recommend treatments. The accumulated experience of healers trying to help the sick. Pulses discussed extensively. Multiple texts focus on it, on the rhythm of arteries, on what different pulses indicate. Fast pulse, slow pulse, strong pulse, weak pulse, irregular pulse. Each variation suggests different conditions, different prognoses. Pulse as diagnostic tool. The physician pulses fingers on the wrist, feels the rhythm, interprets. The skill is learned. Requires experience, requires sensitivity, requires understanding what normal is to recognize abnormal. The pulse reveals what is happening inside the body, provides information not visible externally. Herb jars line a shelf, clay vessels, sealed. The jars contain medicines, dried herbs, processed substances, the pharmacological tools of ancient medicine. Each jar is labeled, names the contents, lists the uses. Opium, for pain, for sleep, for cough. The poppy provides powerful medicine, must be used carefully. Correct dose helps, too much harms. The texts provide dosage guidance, based on age, weight, condition being treated. Willow bark, for fever, for inflammation, for pain. The bark contains compounds we now call salicylates. The ancients do not know the chemistry, but know the bark works, know it provides relief, use it routinely. Countless other herbs, each with traditional uses, some effective, some not, some dangerous. The texts attempt to distinguish, to provide guidance, to help physicians choose appropriate treatments, to avoid harm. Surgery is represented too. Texts describe procedures, setting bones, removing foreign objects, draining abscesses, treating wounds, the practical interventions that save lives. that prevent complications, that restore function. Surgical instruments are illustrated: scalpels, forceps, needles, saws, bronze tools, carefully crafted, sharp, maintained, the instruments of invasion, of controlled cutting, of deliberate intervention in the body. The texts acknowledge pain, acknowledge the suffering surgery causes, recommend wine, opium, substances that dull sensation, that make procedures more bearable. Anesthesia is limited, but not absent. The physicians do what they can to reduce suffering. Diagrams show surgical techniques, step by step, the sequence of actions. The text describes each step, explains why, warns of dangers. The texts are teaching tools, allow physicians to learn procedures without first experimenting on patients, reduce learning curve casualties. Obstetrics occupies substantial space. Childbirth, pregnancy, the care of mother and infant. This is dangerous territory. Maternal mortality is high. Infant mortality is high. The physicians try to help, try to improve outcomes, try to intervene when possible. The texts describe normal birth, describe complications, describe when to intervene, when to let nature proceed. The judgment is difficult, requires experience, requires understanding when help helps and when help harms. You notice the blend of observation and theory. The texts contain accurate anatomical information, contain effective treatments, but also contain speculation, contain theoretical frameworks that are not correct. The humoral theory, the belief that health is balance of four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. The theory is wrong, but is not useless. Provides framework for thinking about health and disease, provides vocabulary for discussion, provides basis for developing treatments that sometimes work even if the underlying theory is flawed. Medical knowledge here is practical, is empirical in the best sense. Physicians observe, try treatments, notice what works, record it, share it. The scientific method is not formalized, but the approach is scientific: observation, experimentation, record keeping, revision based on results. The collection preserves this knowledge, makes it available, allows physicians across the Mediterranean world to access the accumulated wisdom of healing, allows them to learn from others' experience, to avoid repeating mistakes, to build on successes. A sense of compassion permeates the texts. The physicians care, want to help, want to reduce suffering. The texts are not cold, not detached, are written by people who have seen pain, who have tried to alleviate it, who have succeeded sometimes, and failed often, and kept trying. The study of the human form here is gentle wonder, is recognition that these bodies we inhabit are complex, are remarkable, are worth understanding. The physicians study not to conquer, but to serve, to maintain, to repair when possible, to comfort when repair is not possible. The room holds this knowledge, this care, this accumulated effort to understand health and treat disease. The scrolls wait, ready to teach the next generation of physicians, ready to share what has been learned, ready to serve the ongoing human need to heal and be healed. The evening deepens. You move through the complex. The halls are darker now. The last daylight is gone. Oil lamps provide the only illumination. Small flames, scattered, creating pools of light separated by increasing darkness. The scholars have mostly departed, have finished their day's work, have returned the scrolls they were reading, have cleaned their workspaces, have left the mousen for their quarters, for meals, for rest, for the evening activities that happen outside these walls. But some remain. You see them, occasional figures, moving slowly through corridors, sitting alone in reading rooms, dedicated scholars, absorbed in their work, unwilling to stop, continuing past the normal hours, taking advantage of the quiet, of the solitude, of the absence of distraction. One scholar sits at a table, bent over a scroll, a lamp beside him. The circle of light is small, illuminates only the immediate area, the scroll. The scholar's hands, his face partially visible, the rest is shadow. He does not notice you, is completely absorbed, reading intently. His lips move slightly, reading aloud to himself. The ancient practice reading is oral. Even silent reading involves subvocalization. The connection between text and voice is intimate. He makes occasional marks on a separate papyrus, notes, comments, observations. The active reading, the engagement with the text, the dialogue between reader and author that happens across centuries. The scholar participates in conversation with someone long dead. The library makes this possible. You move on, leave him to his work. The quiet is deeper here, more complete. The sounds of the city are distant, muffled by walls, by distance. The motion at night is isolated, separate, a world unto itself. Political winds hinted at from afar. That phrase arrives, not from anything you see, but from knowledge you carry, from awareness of the world beyond these walls. Alexandria exists in context, political context. The Ptolemaic dynasty rules. But Rome is rising, is expanding, is becoming the dominant power in the Mediterranean. Ships entering the harbor bring news, bring rumors, bring the sense that things are changing, that the balance of power is shifting, that the world is becoming more Roman, less independent, less tolerant of the kind of cosmopolitan learning that Alexandria represents. But here, inside, the work continues. The scholars focus on their texts, on their research, on the timeless questions of knowledge and understanding. The political world seems remote, irrelevant. The library has survived regime changes before, will survive whatever comes, or so it seems. So it must seem to those who work here. The alternative is unthinkable. The library is permanent, is too valuable, is too important to the world to be threatened. Everyone understands this. Everyone respects this. Do not they? The lamps burn lower. The oil is being consumed. Some lamps will need refilling. The maintenance staff will attend to it, will ensure the lamps continue burning, will ensure scholars can work through the evening if they choose. The infrastructure supports the work, quietly, invisibly. You notice the temperature. The air is cooling. The stone releases its stored heat, but slowly, the interior spaces remain comfortable. The thick walls moderate temperature change, protect against extremes. The architecture serves the scrolls, protects them from heat and cold and moisture. The building is preservation technology. Library doors closing earlier. This is happening, subtly, not dramatically, but the hours of operation have shifted. Security concerns, unspecified concerns. The doors close while daylight remains. The scholars adjust, modify their schedules, leave earlier. The change is not discussed openly, but everyone notices. The gardens are darker. Fewer lamps burn there now. Economy, perhaps, or caution, or the simple progression toward closure, toward the night hours when the complex rests fully, when even the dedicated scholars must leave, when the Mausin sleeps. You walk through a colonnade. The columns cast long shadows from the few remaining lamps. The shadows stretch, distort. The familiar space looks different in limited light, looks more mysterious, less certain. The shadows hide as much as the light reveals. You hear footsteps, someone else moving through the complex, a guard perhaps, or another scholar. The footsteps echo, approach, then recede, pass without intersection. You do not see the person. Just hear the evidence of their passage, another presence in the vast quiet. Lamps burning lower, that is the reality. The oil is finite, burns at a steady rate. As the evening progresses, lamps dim, eventually extinguish. The darkness grows, claims more space. The library returns to natural night, to the state that exists without human intervention. A few lamps will burn all night, in critical areas, near entrances, along main corridors, but most will go dark, will be relit tomorrow. The cycle repeats, day and night, light and darkness, the rhythm that structures all life, even life dedicated to knowledge. Even here, buildings do not notice history as it approaches. That is the truth. The Mausian cannot sense what is coming, cannot know that its time is limited, that forces are gathering, that the conditions that allowed its existence are changing. The building is stone, is physical structure, cannot anticipate, cannot prepare, can only exist in the present moment. The scholars too are unaware, or mostly unaware. They sense something perhaps, some vague unease, some feeling that things are not as stable as they were, but they continue working, continue reading, continue the daily practice of scholarship. What else can they do? The work must continue. Knowledge must be pursued. The mission must persist, regardless of external circumstances. You find yourself back in the entrance courtyard. The pool still reflects the sky, but the sky is darker now. Deep black, stars fully visible. The reflection is clearer at night, more perfect. The water as mirror. The complex is nearly empty, nearly silent. The day has ended. The evening is ending. The night holds the Mausian, holds the knowledge, holds the scrolls that contain the memory of the world. For now, everything is intact. Everything is present. The collection is whole. The scholars are safe. The work continues. The library functions as it has functioned, as it was intended to function, as it must continue to function. But something has shifted. Some quality of the quiet has changed. It is no longer just the peaceful quiet of evening. Contains something else, some hint of uncertainty, some suggestion of vulnerability. The quiet is gathering, deepening, becoming something more than rest, becoming something that might be prelude, becoming something that waits. The night is complete now, full darkness. The lamps inside provide the only light except for the stars. The Mausian is an island of illumination in the dark city, but the illumination is diminishing. Lamps extinguished. Darkness claiming room after room. You are outside again, in the city, walking toward the harbor. The streets are quiet. Most people are home, asleep or preparing for sleep. The city at rest. The normal rhythm of urban life. But something is different. You sense it before you see it. Something in the air, something in the atmosphere, a quality you cannot name, but can feel. Tension. Alertness, the sense that something is happening or about to happen. You reach a point where you can see the harbor, the water, the ships, the pharaohs still burning, guiding, marking the safe passage. Everything appears normal. The harbor at night, ships at anchor, peace, but on the horizon something, a faint glow, not the sunset. The sun set hours ago, not the moon. The moon is elsewhere in the sky, something else, faint, orange, distant, smoke, or the glow of fire carried on smoke, far away, but visible, present, evidence of something burning. Somewhere outside the city, or at the city's edge, hard to tell. Distance makes certainty difficult. The glow is not dramatic, not alarming, not bright enough to suggest immediate danger. Just present, just there, a change in the normal darkness, something that was not there before, and now is. You think about what it might be. A fire, obviously, but what kind? Accidental? Deliberate? Buildings burning? Fields? The glow gives no answers, just announces that somewhere, something burns inside the motion. Scholars are noticing, are looking up from their texts, are asking questions, are receiving no certain answers. Information is fragmentary, rumors, speculation, nothing definite. But the unease is spreading, the sense that the evening's peace is fragile, that circumstances are shifting. Some scholars begin quietly relocating scrolls. Not all scrolls, not the entire collection. That would be impossible. But select scrolls, the most valuable, the unique texts, the works that exist nowhere else. These scrolls are carefully taken, wrapped, prepared for transport. The work is discreet, unhurried, no panic, no chaos. Just prudent action. Just recognition that precaution makes sense, that protecting the most irreplaceable items is wise, that distribution reduces risk. If something happens here, the knowledge will exist elsewhere. Ships in the harbor are being loaded, crates brought aboard, covered crates, the contents not announced, but obvious to those who understand. Scrolls, texts, knowledge being dispersed, being sent to other cities, to other libraries, to Alexandria in Egypt's sister cities across the Mediterranean. Rome receives scrolls, Pergamum, Athens, Antioch, the network of scholarship, the connections between centers of learning, the informal system that allows knowledge to flow, to spread, to exist in multiple locations. The system that protects against localized loss. The scholars work through the night, some of them, the dedicated ones, the ones who understand what is at stake. They select scrolls, make decisions, which texts are most important, which are most vulnerable, which can be recreated if lost, and which cannot. The decisions are difficult. Every scroll is valuable, every text matters. But resources are limited, time is limited. Choices must be made. The scholars do their best, use their judgment, prioritize as well as they can, under uncertain circumstances, knowledge dispersing. That is what is happening. Not being destroyed, not yet, perhaps not ever, but being dispersed, being distributed, being sent from this single concentrated location to multiple scattered locations. The great gathering is becoming ungathering. The collection is fragmenting, but fragmentation is not destruction, is strategy, is protection, is the recognition that concentration creates vulnerability, that having everything in one place is risky, the distribution increases resilience. That the library as physical place may be vulnerable, that the library as body of knowledge can survive through multiplication, scrolls traveling across seas, this image, ships leaving Alexandria, carrying texts, sailing to distant ports, the scrolls in holds, protected, valued, transported as carefully as gold or precious goods. The ships carry human knowledge, carry centuries of accumulated understanding, carry the treasure that matters most. Sailors do not fully understand what they carry. To them, scrolls are cargo, valuable cargo, but cargo. But the scholars who prepared the shipments understand they are sending irreplaceable things, sending pieces of human civilization, sending memory and knowledge and the recorded achievements of human thought. The ships disappear into darkness. Their sails catch wind. The Mediterranean receives them, carries them away from Alexandria, toward other shores, toward other cities, toward other libraries, where the scrolls will be received, cataloged, preserved, made available to other scholars in other places. Alexandria's collection is diminishing, not rapidly, not catastrophically, but perceptibly. The shelves are less full. Gaps appear where scrolls stood. The density decreases. The collection that took centuries to build is being deliberately reduced, out of necessity, out of prudence, out of love for what the collection represents. The scholars feel the loss. Each scroll that leaves is pain, is failure of the mission to gather everything, to preserve everything in one place, to make the complete archive of human knowledge accessible in one location. That dream is fading. That dream is becoming impossible. The political realities are forcing dispersion, forcing the abandonment of the grand vision. But the knowledge persists. That is what matters. The knowledge continues to exist, will continue to be read, will continue to be studied and copied and transmitted. The library as place may be threatened, but the library as idea survives, multiplies, spreads, becomes many libraries instead of one. The glow on the horizon remains, distant, unthreatening, just present, just there. The scholars do not know what burns, do not know whether it approaches, do not know what it means, but they respond. Take action, protect what they can, ensure that something survives, ensure that the worst outcome does not happen. The night continues, the work continues, the quiet evacuation continues. No drama, no excitement, just the patient work of preservation, of protection, of ensuring continuity, the work that librarians have always done, that archivists have always done, the work of caring for knowledge, of ensuring it endures, of passing it forward to future generations who will care in turn. The first smoke on the horizon is not ending, is beginning, is the sign that change is coming, that the age of Alexandria as sole repository is ending, that a new age is beginning, an age of distributed knowledge, of multiple centers, of knowledge that exists in many places and therefore cannot be lost by losing any single place. The scholars understand this dimly, imperfectly, but they act. They save what they can. They send what they must. They protect the essential. They fulfill their duty. They serve the knowledge that they have dedicated their lives to serving. They do what must be done, quietly, competed, with the calm determination that is the hallmark of true scholarship. Imagined for French shells now, not marble and cedar wood, not physical scrolls, not papyrus that ages and tears, but shells that exist in another way, in another realm. Shells made of light and memory. Shells that hold not the objects, but the content. Not the scrolls, but what the scrolls contained. The Library of Alexandria in its physical form changed, was damaged, was diminished. The details are uncertain. The exact fate is debated, but the building eventually ceased to function as it had. The collection was scattered, lost, destroyed in parts, preserved in parts. The story is complex, is tragic, but not completely tragic, because something survived. The texts did not vanish completely. Copies existed in other libraries, in other cities. The scrolls that left Alexandria on ships reached other shores, were preserved, were copied again, were transmitted forward through time, through centuries, through the long pathway from ancient world to medieval world to modern world. Some texts were lost, irrevocably lost. Titles remain in catalogs, but the works themselves are gone, exist only as references, as boasts, as the knowledge that they once existed. The loss is real, is substantial. Entire works by major authors, plays, philosophical treatises, scientific texts, gone, unrecoverable. But other texts survived, made the journey, existed in enough copies, in enough places, that they could not be completely lost. Homer survived, Plato, Aristotle, Euclid, Hippocrates, the major works, the texts that were copied most often, that were valued most highly, these survived. And something else survived, the idea, the concept, the vision of what Alexandria attempted. A library that gathers everything, that preserves all knowledge, that makes human understanding accessible, that serves scholarship, that protects against forgetting. That idea never died, never was lost, has been reborn repeatedly in Baghdad during the Islamic Golden Age, in medieval Europe's monastery libraries, in the great libraries of the Renaissance, in the national libraries of the modern age, in the public libraries that now serve communities worldwide. Each is an echo of Alexandria. Each carries forward the mission. Each attempts in its own way to gather, preserve, and provide access. The form changes, the technology changes, but the mission remains. The commitment to knowledge, the resistance to forgetting, the service to present and future generations. And now, today, this moment, the digital age creates possibilities that Alexandria's scholars could not imagine. Texts that exist as digital files can be copied infinitely, can exist in countless locations simultaneously, can be accessed from anywhere. The risk of single-point failure is eliminated. The vulnerability of concentration is overcome. Digital archives hold vast collections, larger than Alexandria ever held, more accessible than Alexandria ever was. The texts are searchable, linkable, translatable, available to anyone with internet connection. The democratization of knowledge, the fulfillment of the Alexandrian dream in new form. Projects exist to digitize ancient texts, to scan and transcribe and make available surviving manuscripts, to reconstruct lost works from fragments and references, to build the virtual library that contains everything humanity has written. The work continues, the mission persists, and physical libraries remain, still matter, still serve. Quiet reading rooms exist today, in libraries across the world, where people sit with books, with texts, with the physical objects that carry knowledge. The experience of being surrounded by books, of being in a space dedicated to learning. This experience continues, connects us to Alexandria, to all the libraries that came before. The eternal shelves exist in imagination, in collective memory, in the idea that knowledge should be preserved, should be accessible, should be passed forward. The shelves are not physical, are conceptual, but they are real. They hold what matters. They protect what is valuable. They serve what endures. Nothing is truly erased. It transforms. That is the lesson, the consolation. Yes, the physical Library of Alexandria was diminished. Yes, texts were lost. Yes, the concentration of knowledge in one magnificent place did not persist, but the knowledge dispersed, spread, survived in scattered form, continued in other libraries, in other cities, in other forms, and continues still in libraries, in the databases, in the minds of scholars who study ancient texts, in students who read preserved works, in anyone who picks up a book that descends, however indirectly, from something that once rested on Alexandria's shelves. The chain-filled mission is unbroken, bent, damaged, but not severed. We are connected still to Alexandria, to the scholars who worked there, to the scribes who copied texts there, to the librarians who cataloged there, through the texts they preserved, through the tradition they maintained, through the vision they pursued. Before the silence, there was light on parchment. That light continues, in different forms, through different media, but essentially unchanged. Still the human word recorded, still the human mind sharing understanding across time and space, still the attempt to know and to teach and to preserve knowing. The library exists, not where it was, not as it was, but essentially distributed across the world now, present in every library, in every archive, in every attempt to gather and preserve and provide access to human knowledge. The library as institution may have changed form, but the library as idea is eternal, is with us still, will remain as long as humans value knowledge and commit to protecting it. You stand in Alexandria, in imagination, in the library as it was, before the changes, before the scattering, when the collection was whole, when the shelves were full, when the scholars worked in peaceful confidence that their work would continue, that the library was permanent. That knowledge once gathered would remain gathered. That permanence was illusion, but the value was real. The work was real. The contribution was real. Alexandria taught the world what is possible. What is valuable? What is worth pursuing? The lesson remains, guides us still, inspires still. The marble halls are silent now, have been silent for centuries. The scrolls are dust. The scholars are gone. The motion is ruins, but the spirit endures. The commitment endures. The vision endures. Alexandria lives in every library, in every archive, in every effort to preserve human knowledge against the erosion of time, and perhaps, somewhere, in some realm we cannot access, the complete library exists, the perfect archive, where nothing is lost, where every text survives, where every human thought that was ever recorded can still be retrieved, the eternal shelves, the impossible perfect preservation, the dream that motivates librarians and archivists and all who serve knowledge. Perhaps that realm is only imagination, only metaphor, only the hope that nothing truly valuable is ever completely lost. But even as metaphor, it matters. It gives meaning to the work. It reminds us why preservation matters, why we continue trying, why each generation must commit again to protecting knowledge, to passing it forward, to serving the future as previous generations served us. Before the silence, there was light on parchment, and perhaps somewhere there still is, in memory, in imagination, in the collective commitment of humanity to knowing and preserving and sharing what we learn. The light continues, quiet, steady, eternal, as long as someone, somewhere, reads and learns and passes understanding forward. as long as libraries exist. As long as we remember Alexandria and aspire to fulfill the vision it represented, the library endures, not as it was, but as it is, as it can be, as it must be, the eternal shelves, the infinite collection, the complete archive of human knowledge, present, accessible, serving all who seek, yesterday, today, tomorrow, forever,